Hey, it's Zoe Hoffman from Zoe Hoffman Tutoring, and today I'm going to talk to you about multiplying multi-digit numbers. When you can't use standard algorithm or you don't have a calculator, you need to do it quickly in your head. And this is a great strategy for even if you have paper because it's really neat and I like it a lot. So stay tuned to learn how to multiply tricky numbers. So we're going to start thinking about multiplying these two numbers. We want to multiply 18 times 5. So I want you to think about how you would normally multiply these numbers together. Some people would use standard algorithms. They would line them up like this, 18 times 5, and then they would go about it like that. Some people would use a calculator. Some people would just try to get it off of the top of their head or add the numbers multiple times. I'm going to show you a new way to do this by breaking the numbers apart into friendlier numbers that you know the facts for. So here, I am going to look at 18 and see how I can break this up into numbers that I know the multiplication facts for. So here, I'm going to break 18 into 10 and 8 because I know 10 plus 8 equals 18, and I know that I definitely know the 10's facts and I know the 8 facts as well. So here I'm going to say 10 times 5 and 8 times 5. So I'm multiplying the numbers that I broke up by 5 because that's also a friendly number. And so for 10 times 5, I'm going to get 50. And for 8 times 5, I'm going to get 40. And once I get these, I can add them. And that's going to give me 90, and that's going to be my answer. We can think about this visually with arrays, and I'm going to show you how this works and why breaking it apart doesn't mess up our calculations, as long as we break it apart correctly. So let me pull up our array. So here's our array for 18 times 5. We have 18 here on the long side and then 5 on the short side. And when you make a rectangle out of that, we know that we have 90 squares inside because that's what we got for our answer of 18 times 5. And so I'm actually going to write 90 in the middle here. So we know this is 90. But I want to show you how it looked when we broke those numbers apart to make it a little bit simpler. It's kind of like breaking apart a candy bar. So I had 18 times 5, and I said, okay, this is 10 times 5 and 8 times 5. And this was 50, and this was 40. All right, so when I did 10 times 5, all I did was break our big array down into a smaller portion. So I said, okay, 10, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then 5, we know this is 5 across. So I made a smaller rectangle. And so that was 10 times 5. And so we know that there's 50 squares in here. And if you don't believe me, you can pause the video and you can count the squares that are in that blue rectangle and you'll see that there are 50 squares there. So then I said, okay, I want to do 8 times 5. And so it just so happens that there are 8 squares here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we can do 8 down and then 5 across like this and make this 8 by 5 rectangle. So there's 8 here and 5 here, and we know that there are 40 squares within this. So I'm going to erase that 90 now because 50 plus 40 is going to equal 90. Just like we did on paper, this is actually what we're doing with the numbers. This is what it looks like. And if you don't believe me, again, you can pause it and you can count the squares that are within there. And this is all we're doing. We're breaking down the numbers into friendlier bits, but they all come back together as the same thing. So I can't just make up numbers and be like, I want to multiply 4 times 2 and 3 times 5 because those aren't part of our problem. but we can split the numbers that are in our problem into friendlier bits. Okay, let's look at another example. I'm going to scroll this over to our new equation. So here we're wanting to do 12 times 7. And I picked a bright color for this. So some people might know this in their head already because they memorize all the way up to their 12 stacks. Some people forget their 12 stacks. Either way, you might need help with this. So we have our array here already. And if you pause the video, you could count the squares and know what our answer to our problem is. But we're going to break down 12 into some friendlier numbers because we already probably know our 7 stacks, but we might not know our 12 stacks. So I'm going to break 12 down into friendlier numbers. So think about how you would break it down, and I'm going to think about how I would break it down. I always like to break things down into tens and then leftovers if possible. So here I'm going to say, okay, 10 times 7, and then 2 times 7. I know 10 times 7 is 70. I know 2 times 7 is 14. So altogether, that's going to give us 84. And I want to show this on my array. So I am going to do 10 times 7 in blue. So I know that I need to go across 10. So that'll stop me right here. And then down 7. That's our bigger array. So then I'm going to say, okay, this is 10 times 7, and I know that there are 70 squares in here. And then I'm going to do my next one and maybe like a lighter blue. So I'm going to do 2 times 7. I'm going to go across 2, down 7. And so I know this represents 2 times 7. And there is 14 squares in there. And again, you can pause and count if you don't believe me. And so this whole thing is 84. And it all fits. If there were gaps in there where we didn't box in anything, we might know that we didn't break our number down correctly, and that maybe we need to go back and look at it again. You could split this up into like 6 and 6. So if I wanted to say, okay, 6 times 7 and 6 times 7, I could have done that as well. I just usually like to pick tens because those are very automatic and easy. Let's look at another problem. All right, so here we have 21 times 12, and this is probably not a fact that you have in your brain. And you could probably do it in standard algorithm and have 21 times 12 lined up, but then you'd have to do quite a few steps and you'd have to remember to add the zeros and add everything at the end. It might take a while, but we can do this pretty quickly by breaking the numbers apart. And here I'm actually going to break both factors into different numbers. So 21 times 12. And I'm actually going to break it down into more than just 2 facts. You could break it down into just 2 facts if you know your 12 facts very well. You could just do 20 times 12 and 1 times 12. Pretty easy. But here I wanted to show you that you can break it down even further if you need friendlier numbers. So here what I did is I broke it down into 20 times 10 because I took the 1 off of the 21 and the 2 off of the 12. But then I need to go back and say 20 times 2 because I need that 2 still to multiply by that 20. And then I did 1 times 12 to take care of this 1 that's in the 21. And so this is going to equal 200. This is going to equal 40, and this is going to equal 12. All right, and so I'm going to show you what this looks like on the array. Since we did 3, and you might not be following how I broke those numbers up and why. So I broke up 21 into 20 and 12 into 10 because I felt like that was going to be a little bit easier for me to multiply. So I did 20 and 10 So that's going to be my biggest chunk right there. So that's 20 and 10, and that's 200 squares. Then I did 20 times 2. So I can go 20 over 2 down. So that takes care of this chunk right here. And 20 times 2 is 40. And then the last bit, I did 1 times 12. I'm going to switch to a different color here. So 1 and then 12 down. So there's 12 squares here. You could split it in a different way. So here we have 200 plus 40 plus 12. And so that's going to give us 252. You could split it in a different way. So I'll show you one more way you can split it. So we could say, okay, 21 times 12. We could have just split it into 20 times 12. And then we could have split it into 1 times 12. So that way you're just splitting that first factor right here into friendly numbers and keeping the 12 intact. So this is going to be 240, and then this will be 12. And the way that would have looked, 20 times 12, that would have been 20 across and then 12 down. So the big chunk is right here, and that would have been 240. And then the 1 times 12, you can see that baby sliver over here, 1 times 12, and that's 12 squares. So all together, that would again give us 252. So it's really the way that your brain works. My brain automatically did the first way. A lot of people's brains automatically do the second way. It's the way that you split the numbers. Just check yourself and make sure that you're doing it in a way that keeps the quantities the same so that you're not getting a different answer. I'm going to part with you on an equation that you can try on your own while pausing the video, and then I'll go over it. So let's get back to our whiteboard here. Let's see, 42 times 8. So pause the video, think about how you want to split this number to find your product. And then when you're ready, play it and see if you got the correct answer. And if you did it the same way that I did, you don't have to do it the same way I did. It's just fun to see if we think the same way. So pause it and come back when you're ready. And I'm assuming that you're coming back now. And so the way that I split mine is by saying 40 times 8 and 2 times 8. I like to do those zeroed out, or the numbers with the zeros on the end. I just think those are the easiest. So 40 times 8 is 320. And the way that I got that is 8 times 4 and then added a 0. And then 8 times 2 is going to be 16. And so when you add those together, you get 336. And you could check that on an array if you would like. But you know that you did this correctly because if you added the numbers that you broke apart, you're getting 42, which is the number that you broke apart in order to make it a little bit simpler. So I hope that this helps you to do these equations in your head quickly and find the products quickly. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments or any just comments in general about how this might have helped you. If you want to know more about me and the products and services that I sell, you can find me at www.zoehoffman.com. That's ZOIEHOFFMAN.com. And I will put a link down below as well. I'm so happy that you joined me, and I'll see you next time. Bye.